Thank you, Lauren, so much. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm really excited to be at this very beautiful building. We have such nice views of New York City, and also with some great friends and speakers that we will talk about Mexico City right now and kind of the attention that's going on right now. And to my left, I have Barragán, who's an artist and fashion designer, Karla Kaplun, artist, and Karla Fernández, also a fashion designer. And so instead of reading the bios, we have the bios in the little booklets. I wanted to make sure that we have enough time. I was going to introduce a little bit of what we were going to be talking about, and then each of them would talk for 5 minutes around their work, so you also all get familiar with it. And get to know a little bit about what they do, the important work that they're doing, and then we'll jump into some questions together, and then we'll open it up for everybody. So to introduce us, Mexico City, with over 25 million people, is a place where a palimpsest of indigenous, colonial, modern, and contemporary histories merge and intersect with questions around class, race, and hierarchies of power. It is a city where beauty and horror are in constant exchange, but also where invention and creativity manifest in all forms. From the hand-painted signs made by street vendors who invent new typographies, to foods such as pozole, ceviche, or tacos al pastor that make visible the merging of cultures in everyday life. And through a lineage that is present to this day, experimentation in art, design, architecture, and fashion thrives. And so there's this newfound intensity and attention to Mexico City that can bring both kind of the good and the bad. So visitors, I think, should always be aware of the space that they're guests in, including myself. Whenever I visit, I feel as a guest and try to act like that. But we should be mindful of the enduring lineage of colonization and how it manifests across race and class, and make efforts to somehow contribute positively to the city. And so in thinking about Mexico City, in this moment, especially in regards to contemporary art, fashion, design, and its intersection, which is what we're talking about today, I'm excited to welcome the 3 speakers that we have here that I think are really leading voices in Mexico, but really playing, stretching, and complicating this idea of Mexicanidad or Mexicanness. So thank you so much for being here. And I did want to start off, maybe on the note of Mexico City itself, how right now for artists, for designers, for you and your own work. Oh, before we start there, I guess we did want to go into sorry about that, going back to some of the presentations. So Carla, maybe if you want to start us off, and we have 5 minutes for each, and then we'll go into questions. Sure. Sorry that I got a little bit ahead of myself.
Instead of presenting myself, I want to present the ideas and the heart of our fashion house. So I'm going to read to you parts of the Manifesto of Fashion as Resistance that I wrote around 5 years ago. I don't have time to read it all. It's a decalogue, so I'm just going to read 3 points and the introduction. One day, we woke up and realized we could not care less about what happens in Paris. We do what they told us not to do. Our way of doing things seems suicidal to business schools. We work in Mexico, a country where 60 different languages are spoken. Textiles are our lingua franca. Among ourselves, we speak with fingers, palms, and cubits. Our garments smell of smoke. They are woven and embroidered next to the stove. We create few of them, and we do it slowly. We are like grasshoppers in the field, small but rambunctious. We use fabrics that were woven to be treasured. A huipil is an open book. Its brocades tell the story of how a caterpillar morphs into a butterfly. The same rectangle that is a skirt in the morning becomes a mat in the afternoon and a blanket at night. It is up to us to put an end to fashion as trash. We do not design garments to end up rotting in a dump. We say no to the mass production that is so detrimental to our planet. Anonymous assembly is for the plunderers of souls, not to the neoliberalism false urgency that season after season prioritizes volume over care. We say no to uniformity, not to the vile automated consumerism, not to disparaging what is ours. Let us not fool ourselves. We all participate in fashion. We say yes to insubordinate creativity. We say yes to work free of distress. The point number 1 of our manifesto says, to be original is to go back to the origin. In Mexico, high fashion is made in the mountains, the deserts, and the jungles. We make fashion alongside people whose roots are in the earth from which they sustain themselves. In the mountains, an artisan harvests cotton, collects 7 branches with which to make a backstrap loom, and sits on a woven palm mat to make a panel of fabric. If tomorrow the petroleum supply is depleted, if there is no electricity or internet and the industry is paralyzed, she will still do what she does. She will continue making her own clothing, growing her own food, and building her own home. She will do tomorrow just as she does today, and just as her ancestors have done for centuries. The capacity to transform materials into sustenance is a key element in a way of life commensurate with nature, in which rituals, worldviews, and science are intertwined. We pose the question, who should be learning from whom? Number 2, fashion is not ephemeral. We say death to planned obsolescence, which renders expandable to all it draws into an abyss of waste. The best design is not what disintegrates, but what remains. We want our clothes to last so that their whisper will be heard by other generations. Fashion is not ephemeral, neither is our planet, nor our relationships. Our relationships with the communities with whom we collaborate are abiding and fond. Number 3, tradition is not static. For more than 3,000 years, those who weave and embroider have transmitted their fundamental knowledge from mother to daughter. If their techniques have survived, it is precisely because they are a form of expression. In them, the subjective and the collective are simultaneously manifested. Still, tradition is not suspended in time. In small towns and artisan communities, styles change and evolve. Creativity is alive, not canceled, and it gives ways to new, unexpected designs.
Gracias, Carla. Sorry, we're just finishing the slides. So we go to Karla Kaplun. And I will say every time, Karla Kaplun and Carla Fernández, so we can distinguish with the Carlas. Gracias.
Well, hello, everybody. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, hello, everybody. I'm Karla Kaplun. I'm really glad to be here with you guys that I admire a lot, and thank you, Lauren, for inviting me. So yeah, while I was making this presentation, I was thinking that we, or like us painters, doesn't like to speak about our own paintings. And why is that? Well, maybe there are painters that like to speak about their own paintings, but in my case, I was wondering, why is it so difficult to maybe arrange these images that are so familiar and so, I made them, but at the same time, why is it difficult to speak about them, myself? And what occurs me was that maybe I can divide the symbolism and the art of making paintings itself in 2 categories. First, the conceptual part, which I'm going to talk about later, that I'm really inspired in the Baroque period, in the Baroque era, and the colonial paintings of my of my country, which I've lived and you know, grew with. And the other one is the most personal and mysterious part, which I think it's why it's so difficult to speak about art, because it talks about yourself, you know, your sentiments, your feelings. So, well, what you can see in my paintings is this negotiation between these two worlds, you know, the conceptual part and something that I think is more related to being just a vehicle of you know, the mystery of life. I don't know if I'm getting so a little bit spiritual here, but I think, well, to be sincere, it's how I managed to cope with my practice is these two negotiations. You know, the Baroque inspiration, which I can express through the framing and the, you know, this maybe more technical way of approaching the painting. Here, for example, I made this tableau altarpiece, which is clearly inspired in a particular period of time, but at the same time, there are characters and people that are deeply important for me, and that I portray them. There's some friends, some feelings that happens that I can relate, you know, in my life. But then, yeah, I can't hide some of the reference of the intertext of the paintings. There's inspiration from Caravaggio, from Rivera. You're going to see as well some fabula inspiration, some biblical as well inspiration that speaks about the town that I grew up, where I grew up and how I was educated. I don't know. This is a copy of the Holbeins. I tried to. And also I use some reference from the opera. Here I made these paintings inspired in Carmen, the Bizet opera. I made them for, well, it happens that the gallery where I presented these works was the last Bizet house. So it was pretty obvious to me to make some kind of, you know, transpolation from the Carmen, this great opera, to my own personal language. No? And here is Carmen. It's like a syncretism of many things. Also, I love muralism and the big formats that allows me to put all these characters in conversation with the painting. Again, I use this this framing to make a conversation with the theater, and as well, there are some of my grandfather, my aunt, my uncle. You know, it's kind of personal, but at the same time, I don't know, jet universal. And this is biombo. I don't know how to say biombo in English.
Screen, no?
Screen divider, no, the screen. That says Dios, which is God in Spanish, and yeah, I also try to include this, research of the Baroque that I was talking about, these two negotiations, these negotiations of these two worlds, and the first one is really technical, and I see it as as a part of the conceptual research of my work, and then the more personal and yes, the question about art acting myself as a vehicle. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Gracias.
Gracias a ti. Y Víctor,
Ay.
vamos a pasar. Ah, sí. Lo que tenemos que mover.
This one? Okay. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Victor Barragán. I'm from Mexico City, born and raised. So I guess this is kind of the first sculptures that I did. I started as a fashion designer. I studied architecture, then industrial design, and then I was playing more with garments, I guess, when I was pretty young. After some quiet years of just, I guess, playing with garments, like putting some of my ideas, the point of view in the fashion world, I want to challenge myself and kind of go back to where everything started for me, like in school. So this piece means like this relationship I had with my body. So as a Jovi, grow up as a gay man in Mexico and go through all this like macho and all this like process of like how you can like identify yourself. In this piece, I was talking about like, how we kind of put so much pain in our bodies to like kind of see ourselves some type of way. So this is the idea how I talk about my body in my work, and then I mix some reference as the lava stone, and that's the concrete like I use for this sculpture. And this is one of the really like, I guess, big moments for me to like introduce like a new chapter in my career. Then we have this amazing fun shit, like, okay, we just bring this bench that was shown in Mexico City at a Luis Barragán garden. And then this piece fly then to LA for a collector, and then we had this amazing opportunity to put it on a cover of a new magazine, and then I was like, yeah, let's put it on the beach. It was amazing, so I'm really happy like they say yes to my sometimes crazy ideas. So it was pretty nice to like, I guess, showcase this, and then the fun part was like a lot of people to actually, they're like, I guess like muscle builder guys around the beach. They were really interesting, so they were interacting and seeing the piece, and they were like so like fascinated about how like they see some part of their, I guess, their life in all the different, I guess, aspects. So in art, I think it's pretty important to like have the conversation, how like we all are connected, even maybe like we don't come from the same places, but we all actually have something in common. So it was pretty interesting to see how people were like interacting with this. Mm-hmm. Okay, next one. This is like a kind of like a render of how I want to like, I guess, the pieces to be perceived. The next one, I have like this show was called Catching STDs No Feelings. Was definitely like a sense of humor about like this meme around about catching fly no feelings. So it's the same idea of how we all are connected in this world and we keep like engaging in so many ways. There's like pretty way for me really interesting to talk about like my sexuality. And on this show, we have like a video, me eating itself, and then have this like, kind of like a urinal on the back. So everyone come to the show and they were allowed to pee on the art piece, and that was pretty amazing to see how people interact and they want to be part of it. So the idea like, okay, let's just piece art. And then okay, whatever. People were like, let's do it. So more people come, and then I guess that was one part of the show, and that was activated with, I guess, with the audience. So the piece was like, I guess, kind of like being alive with all the urine of everyone that was, I guess, attending to the show. For my next show, I did like a nursing home, and then keep exploring materials like design. We did this like nursing home in Los Angeles, and that was like a mix of like, I guess, beautiful artifacts, objects, and then how they invite the people to like touch them and kind of be part of the show. So for the opening, we have like someone laying naked on the daybed, and then people were like actually like more attracted to like explore the piece, and they kind of feel all the, I guess, the elements of the grass, then the table, and then everyone want to touch the spikes, and they like have this relationship with like pain and beauty. Okay, group shows. We had the Tea Party. Tea Party was an amazing, I guess, really aggressive way to like talk about like meth use, and then they have this like table was like pretty intricate how like kind of you want to see it, you want to know, and then you want to explore around. We have like this small like pink chairs so where the people can like kind of sit down and have this interaction with like a meth pipe and like some flame torch. And okay, this is another group show. So we show like some pieces of the nursing home. It was really interesting because here was a lot of people from Mexico. So it was really nice to see like, I guess like a big group of, I guess, Mexican designers like showing and how we like kind of like interacting with each other with materials, like its reference. So it was pretty fun show to see everyone kind of like collaborating together. This side table, bench, stool, a little base, then melanina. For this show, we talk about how we are like consuming melanin in a way like how we, I guess as a brown person, how I see myself, like how I think like my body could be like a currency now. And I think I'm really excited to see like in a way how we portray this in a, like a commercial way. So we create like these renders about like selling melanin and how we can invest that in different ways, how we can talk about the art and then these things keep moving around. So we create some ads for this show. And then this is going back to like the first show, well, the first piece that I showcased was the trembolone. Trembolone means like the most aggressive steroid like kind of humans are using these days. So that was inspired of name the piece how like we now modify our bodies, and now we have the freedom, and then we actually can talk about it like with Ozempic and so many, I guess now, amazing things that are there, so we can like be happier and we can like kind of own our bodies in this new world that we live in. That's the bench, showcase the garden. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Thank you to, I'm gonna go back and maybe stay on, I'll stay here.
Okay.
So now to get us started, it was just a good way to situate everybody. Thank you all three for talking a little bit about your work. And it kind of shows the range of conversations that are happening right now in Mexico City. But I think to get us started with this, I did want to ask, you know, you all have studios in Mexico City, some for a long time, some recently in the Historic Center in different parts. Victor, you grew up there. And you inhabit different parts of it, you know, either coming and going where you live, where you work, you know, it's this thing. So what aspects or textures or rhythms of the city do you think stimulate your work right now at this moment?
Who start?
Quien quiera. ¿Tú?
Me? Okay. Well, I think like for me, I love to see what the younger generation is doing. It, I guess, gives me so much like hope to like all these ideas keep like moving. So I think I always see like what the kids are doing is for me is really inspiring. So I always like you can see people in the club, you can see people in the museums and schools. They have like a different point of view. Like maybe I guess I don't know anymore because I'm not that young, so I keep learning with them. So it's really inspiring to see like what the youth is doing. And I think that conversation of like different generations, so how we kind of keep learning with each other. Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of you kind of respect your elders somehow. So I think that's how I was seeing people older than me. Like that's what I find so much inspiration. Like kind of listen to people what they have to say or express. Mm.
Well, for me. I didn't grow up in Mexico City. I grew up in a town called Curator. So when I was 18, it was really obvious to me that the important next step in my adolescence was to go into Mexico City and study. Because I've always seen it, and after living there 12 years right now so far, it's you know, it's a daily amusement. I don't know if you have been there, but for example, in Mexico City in particular, and I think Jovanna, you said it in the introduction perfectly. it's a conjunction, conjunción of many things happening at the same time. It happens in the big cities, but I think particularly in Mexico, what I feel is, you have the deep-rooted history. You go outside, you can see you can see many layers: the past, the present, and in some sense, what you're saying, Victor, the next generations are speaking in other languages. So definitely that inspires my work, and also. For me, it's really important the Baroque period, and I live in downtown. So in downtown, it used to be the center of the Aztec world. There you can see the remains of a pyramid while you are walking to the taco puesto, to eat some tacos, and you see the pyramids, and then you see super bougie stores. So it's this kind of, Dali said that it's one of the most surreal city, and every day that I'm there, I agree with him. So.
Well, what I have to say about Mexico, the city and the country, is that our phrase is, yes, we can, and yes, we can do amazing sculptures with the same knowledge and with the same hands as the Aztecs or the Toltecas, so the craftsmanship still is alive. We live in a country where the true luxury is the handmade processes, and where craftsmanship is just amazing. And for me, that is la cuestión formidable, like the amazing opportunities that a country like ours gives us is endless. You have an idea, and then you can produce it. And you have like the most craziest ideas and the most difficult crafted ideas, and you can make them, with the craftsmanship and with the artists. That Mexico is a powerful cultural country, and that is what we have to be proud of, and that we have to, fight for its way of maintaining their living. So that's the phrase that I really like.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that brings me to this next question, which is really thinking about how your work interacts with different aspects of time in the history, let's say, of Mexican art. So, I think that what you were just saying, Carla, you obviously kind of interact with so many craftspeople and artisans that have been using certain methodologies for centuries, that have been passed on through many, many generations. It's familial, it's kind of in the DNA, and you work with them. And Karla Kaplun, you're kind of going to this moment in Baroque history specifically, and that we see all over Mexico in the churches, and how it interacts too with this history of like the religion and colonization. And then Victor, in some of the sculptures that you're making now, there's a real sense of this, like the use of the stone, that again maybe goes back to what you were saying, Carla, of like this even Mesoamerican kind of the style or the aesthetic. And so I wonder why you're going back to these moments in Mexican art. What makes you go back to them and look at them and use them and redo them, remake them in the way that you do with your work? How do you make it relevant, or why do you go back to these moments in time and history of Mexican art?
Okay.
Well,
Go first.
Okay.
Go first.
Well, for me, even though I grew up in a really religious city in Mexico City, in Mexico, and I grew up seeing these beautiful churches, when I grew up, I realized that the Baroque period was well, that the colonial Novo-Hispanic period was in some way a summary of what we, the three of us, are speaking about. You know, it's the conjunction of many cultures, the mestizaje, I don't know how, the mestizaje of different ways of being, and how that can result in a new innovative way of thinking. You know, the Spanish brought these beautiful tableaus, retablos, paintings, so that they can evangelize the native people, because it was a spiritual conquest. And then they, by some kind of imposition, the native people made them their own language. They transpose their own way of thinking, their gods, their own selves. They portrait them into this new imposed, kind of way of kind of art that was the European Baroque. So that layering of complexity, I found right now the world very Baroque. Everywhere I look, I think it's Baroqueness everywhere. You know, it's so many. It's so many ways of thinking, of being, collapsed in one final. I don't want to say product, but let's say result. No, so that's why. The city and that period in particular, it's really important for my practice and my daily life, I think, because it allows me to rethink the world we're living in other ways.
¿Quieres seguir tú?
Well, for me, it's very important to work with traditional methods, because some of them have been there for as long as 3,000 years, as the backstrap loom, and for me are the most innovative and futuristic of all. We tend to think of traditional methods as static, as primitive, and it's not like that. They've been evolving for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years. And not only that, they are the ones that keep the equilibrium, and they are the true ones that are sustainable. Why? Because they take time to be produced, you know, and then the care of what happens when you create by hand is that your whole body, you know, it comes through the eyes, your environment, your community. Those eyes go through your heart, and it exits through your hands, and the timing is perfect. And it's not just making and making and making, and that making all this trash. So first of all, if we talk about sustainability, when we do it slowly and we do it taking care of the timing and the processes, that comes of true equilibrium with nature and community. And I also think that we have to take out, for example, fashion. I do fashion. And people tend to say that we, like fashion designers, are, we just care about our looks, you know? And we're superficial. And if you think about the loom, like the process of the loom is the same process that the computers are using. You know, so that is a very big revolution. The second very big revolution is the Industrial Revolution that comes of making looms, you know. And it goes on and on. And then, for me, it's very important to understand clothing as the first impression that we all get from each other. Clothing is an open book. I might not have the opportunity to talk to you all, but I can see what you want me to read about you through clothing. And this is something that the indigenous communities around the world are very clear, that you communicate of making your own clothing. And in that making, you know the processes that are involved. And then you will, when you understand the processes, it's like the processes of harvesting, then you will understand everything that is involved, and you will cherish the person that is making your food, your clothing. And then it becomes very clear that we don't have to waste and the timing of the production, another type of production that doesn't have to do with this voraz, how you say voraz? Consumerism. That you just do and do and do, the voracity of contemporary consumerism.
Nice.
The question.
Okay, era como, it was really thinking about returning to certain moments in Mexican art, or like going back to them, to these references. And
Okay. I guess I like to use a lot the materials. I grew up, I guess, in a way like seeing a lot of like volcanic and so many like, I guess on the park you see the way how people use concrete that I think was pretty big that I was seeing on the city, kind of growing up. So I think like that the way to like use this like a really like, I would say a humble material, how we can like create something totally new and have this reference of how we want to look. We want to look maybe like this specific like, I forget the name of the type of rock it is, but it's like that how it does a reference back in my head, how I apply that to like a new way to talk about, I guess, my experience being from Mexico, but kind of like, okay, I'm talking about I grew up here, and then how all the influence now, I guess I was like an internet kid, so I have so much access to so much things from outside in TV, and then how I apply all these with my own, I guess, experience, and I create something new, and I change the context of materials and my own experience, and that's how I like to go back and see the reference that I was exposed, and then, okay, how I apply this to a new language, because I'm always like, I guess now I travel a lot, I change cities all the time, so I keep learning from so many different places, and how this is gonna create something new with my own point of view for where I come from.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Victor. And thinking about references too, I'm just going back a little bit to what maybe Las Carlas talked about, because I do think that there is a conversation that we're starting to have, even though it's not yet so out in the open here in terms of like sexuality, gender, and class, in terms of fashion and design and art making. And so I guess I feel like in some ways, Carla, you also, in your paintings, you kind of complicate. It's like going back to the Baroque, but really bringing in like new questions and new characters and new ways of really approaching these traditional methods, or traditional histories. And same with Victor, because it's like approaching some of these methodologies that you're saying, but really with your new language, and really addressing sexuality, and really addressing kind of your own lived experience right now. And Carla, too, I mean, I wonder how it is, since you started working with certain communities, and these communities too, how the relationship is with the artisans that you work with. Like, how do you all address maybe class and gender or sexuality in your work, and what do you, how do you approach it, and what do you think is actually happening right now in terms of that conversation in Mexico? Because I do think that, this year we're going to have a presidential elections with 2 women, which is kind of incredible given that there's still 10 women a day getting murdered in Mexico. So there's this range of like real complexity, and it's not as simple as like, oh, there's two women. So yeah, I think it's a complicated question, but I wonder how you complicate that within your own work, and how are you feeling like that is being talked about right now in Mexico? I know it's complicated, so I don't know who wants to start that.
Well, I can start. I mainly work with women. 90% of textile craft women make textiles in Mexico. And how do we work with them is also something that I've been thinking not to make the same mistakes that I've been since I was very young from my teachers or reading about not successful ways of doing collaborations in the production and also in the creative way. So first of all, we create together with the artisans because they are by far the best designers in my country, by far, and the best artists in my opinion. And that is also something very important is that they approach us as a studio. It's not the designer going towards the artisan, but it's the artisan coming towards a fashion house or a design house and telling us, it's like, we have a problem. We are not selling anymore, or we have a client in Texas that wants us to make bags, and we don't know how to create the bags. Let's join our knowledge and let's share knowledge and let's do it together. So it's a very different combination of someone going as a designer from the city and tell them, it's like, oh, I want you to do this bottle that you have always been doing, but now let's put some horns and let's open it and let's do whatever. So it is a very specific methodology. We even design a methodology that is visual. We work with squares and rectangles. I have been doing a research the last 35 years of my life of how this is what we call the square roots. It's applied to design. We have, as we said, 68 different languages. That means 68 different ethnic groups. All of them create their garments using squares and rectangles, all of them. And we have translated that into making new garments in a design methodology. We mainly work with women that don't speak Spanish. And of course, I wish I could speak all of their languages, but I don't. So we made this methodology to show how a Purépecha woman uses the squares and rectangles to make clothing, and how maybe Chamula women or I don't know, a Mije or a Zapotec, and when they see how this technique works, it opens and expands their mind, and they can create new designs. And it's very important because these new designs based on the squares and rectangles, you don't need to use scissors, you don't need to use like the reglas for seamstress. It is attached to the way of making clothing. And you are not making this herida, scar, as the patronaje, as the patterning of Western tailoring is, you know? So instead of making hamburgers that for many, many years we were trying to make hamburgers with Mexican textiles, but they are not compatible because when you put a buttonhole in a fabric that is made on backstrap loom, it opens. You know, when you make a curve and you try to stitch it, it doesn't work. Then you have like a very thick seams. So all those things we have to develop, and we created this language of where we can be very contemporary using salsa, carne asada, tortillas, but not like the Mexican things that we use to create our garments. And it has been very successful, I have to say. So that's how we work.
Well, for me, you know, I don't know in which phase of capitalism we are right now. I don't know, the late capitalism. You know, but well, the fact that I'm a woman, and it's this paradox operation that I will try to expose to explain. I don't know if it's enough that I'm a woman, that I'm from Mexico, that I'm a painter, to be enough, disruptive. And how then the capitalism also has this crazy operation of taking these aspects of myself and then making a brand, as Karla Kaplun, and a female Mexican, Latin American, Latina artist. So, it's a really fascinating way in how this reality operates. It's always like a yellow marker. You can subrayar, so you can highlight certain things. You can, put them in a box, and then that box, in certain ways, it's a new product. So I think, like, being sincere with you, I don't know if being respectful with one another, it can be just good enough for us answering this question, because I can see also that it's becoming a fashion in the world, a trend, It can be something really powerful, really unique, really transformative. But at the same time, we cannot ignore that can be a product, another product.
Gracias.
De nada.
Era sobre como la sexualidad, gender and sexuality.
Oh, okay. How I
and you're working in Mexico right now, too.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Or class.
There's a lot to say.
Whatever you want to approach.
Yeah, I think in the way how I work is with like my own community, so that's the best way I can learn about myself and I guess each other. So obviously the people that I kind of grew up, went to school, obviously like my same kind of like I guess my queer community. That's how we keep growing together, and it's pretty important for me to like I guess portray that on my work. Because I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about, I guess, someone else, and I'm talking about, like, so many experiences we have. But at the same time, it's like we are not isolated. We interact with, like, a lot of people. And now, if you see, like, in Mexico, it's, like, a lot of different people, like, coming from different places. So how we now, I guess, we can talk about, like, colonization, but now we can talk about, okay, how we're going to all work together to create something better and something new. So that's kind of how, like, my work always talk about like, how we kind of like, all kind of like pour off, I guess, but we can, I guess, put on the table and create something new. And this conversation is when like I think culture, a new culture start happening, and then that's something that's really important with, I guess, in my experience with my brand and with my artwork, how we can all keep communicating and creating something new, and in this way, I guess, new ways to like talk about art or like create fashion or like I guess everything, even cuisine, everything's gonna like evolve to something new. And I think that's what we like experience now, more with like I guess this amazing highlight of like Mexico City is like wow, the city to be there right now, and you see it, and it's really I guess inspired to see like new things are happening, and then how we can like protect and create something new together and have something positive about it, and let's don't focus only on colonization and like how this is going to affect future generations.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great maybe way to start closing before we have into questions with the audience, because I do think that, there's a lot of influx right now and attention to Mexico City, and of course that's amazing, and I think that it's kind of what you're saying, like, how do we, I guess that question is going to be also kind of big, but with this newfound attention to Mexico and all these kind of galleries and collectors and influx of folks coming, what ways could maybe those that are visiting and those maybe that stay, kind of what is a positive contribution to the city? What does that look like? What do you think, or what do you imagine or hope for people that are coming right now and that we have this attention?
Well, I think it's important to notice that there is migration both ways, because in Mexico or here in North America, even we are North America as well, they say it's like block the border, like a lot of people are coming to the United States or North, and we don't talk about all the people going south, If you walk to our neighborhoods, or you walk to Oaxaca, or you walk to, then you are like, to Tulum. It's like, okay, whoa, So it's always to be aware of these dynamics of migration. And we made, my husband Pedro Reyes and I, we were part of Design Miami like a couple of years ago. We were like the designers and artists. They gave you a recognition. And we made the map that you saw at the beginning, but the whole Americas. And it's also very important to notice that it's not that it's like the Canadians, the North Americans. It's always, for me, difficult to say like estadounidenses, because we're also Americans. Mexicanos and all the country. But we forget like all the First Nations and all the nations that have been here for, like in Mexico, there's a new skull that is just 7,000 years old. So these terms of migration have to be open and redefined.
Well, and speaking particularly, for example, about galleries migrating to Mexico City, and also as well, I can realize why it's really appealing for all over the world to watch towards Mexico as an interesting, an interesting city where many things are happening and has happened in the past. In the morning I was recalling this the Spanish that came to Mexico, the exiliados in the Franco period, and how that, for example, that migration, that open migration, may make something new to the arts in the city, It's but so, and as Victor said, it's not only watching the worst case scenario, because I think, and we all know, I guess, that the art can't be always messianic, and we should call it as it is. It's art, the art world that we are all participate in, can tend to be a little bit, aggressive, and it comes with a package of certain dangerous things embedded in the word of the art world, and so yeah, for sure, it has been something that has changed Mexico City in particular. These neighborhoods, La Condesa, La Roma, all this older neighborhood that has transformed to Williamsburg or something like that. It's like they're really fashionable, and you feel in a sense that you are in New York. But then, yeah, it's. I think it's something that it's embedded in art. That this like whitening, gentrification aspect that we also as artists have to confront the question, and I think what you said in the beginning, Jovanna, I think it's really important. It's not how we can do something more pure or less, bad. But being aware of what these migrations and these, this, in particular, these galleries moving to the city does or do
To the ecosystem.
to the ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay. I think I would say the whole, I guess for me it's quite simple. How I can say is it's kind of like a personal work. So you have to be conscious of what you do, and I guess art obviously inspire and communicate some ideas. But at the end of the day, it's all this conscious and awareness is something come within your own self. So I guess I think art can help to create some moments to reflect, and then how exactly all my actions can affect everyone, and just be mindful exactly I guess our privilege we have in the world, and then how we can make something better about it. I think that's quite simple in writing, but obviously it's deeper than that, and I think that's the only way I guess thing is gonna get it's better, and it's gonna be more progressive, and that's I guess that's the inspiration, but it's quite hard to just get or put all the responsibility in art. So music is this is something really personal. I'm I can do whatever I don't know can say, and at the end of the day, it's you do what you want. So it's how I think that art is the little poke, and then the rest is your own work. And I guess that's how I see it.
Gracias. So maybe now it's a good moment to open it up to any questions from the audience.
Yes, do we have any questions? Yes.
So, congrats, three of you. You are really so creative, so talented, and representative great to your country. So I want to ask you some questions. So three of you are still living in Mexico, right?
Well, I do.
Sorry?
Yes, we all do.
Yes, you are all living.
Yeah.
So as two artists, sometimes are you feeling your country is not enough for you, for producing, for showing your arts, or say, and do you have some things that you are feeling sometimes not enough? I am asking. And what is your target? What do you want to do with your works? Because they are really good. And then I want to ask you, did you study fashion design? And you are working with local artisans, you told. For modeling, you are taking the old style and make it modernized, or you are designing new things? And where you are selling your products, and who is your target group? And what is your goal? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, I am happy to say that for me, Mexico is the best place to be. I have been invited to live or teach or work in other countries, and I would never, at the moment, change Mexico City or Mexico, the country, for another country. We are also very lucky that people come to Mexico and they enjoy it and they buy. I have 3 stores. I have 2 stores in Mexico City, 1 store in Yucatan, in Mérida, and 1 store in Marfa, Texas. And we sell online, and we sell in some museums in the United States. And we have a very clear note of who comes to our stores. I have to say that more and more are foreigners that buy our clothes and our designs. But we have a chunk, like 40% of our clients are Mexicans. still, or Mexicans living abroad. And yes, I work with artisans we work with 220 artisans in 16 different states. And I'm missing some question, no? I'm missing...
For modeling, you are
oh, yes.
still traditional design, or you are making them modernized, or you are designing new things?
Yes, we do both, but especially what happens is not we as a fashion house, like the artisans in Mexico. When you go to any market in Mexico and you have an artisan that is selling clothing to you, not to their community, to you as a tourist, they're selling new designs. Maybe you don't notice it, but we do. Because the traditional clothing, they take a lot of time, and they are not expensive, but they're son costosas. They ask you to pay for a beautiful chamula skirt 20,000 pesos, which is what is worth it because the amount of work that they have, so tourists don't understand that. And they make clothing for tourists. So those are the new designs that they make. So they're very clever, of course, and they're very good commerciants, so they do both. And what we do is that we do clothing, fashion, together with the artisans. We have an ONG that is called Taller Flora. We sit down, for example, the chocolate whisk. This is chocolate that you rub, no? That it's not in use that much because now the chocolate comes in powder. Maybe not if you come from Oaxaca because they still do it. And we place the chocolate stick in the table, and we dissect it, and we see that has these rings, you know? And it's like, okay, let's do the same rings, but not for chocolate, because they're not selling anymore, and they're made to last forever. So let's make them into bracelets. And we have sold those bracelets in the Tate Modern, in LACMA, in Japan, you know, and it's exactly the same technique. Even we push the artisans not to use like forbidden wood. Now we're working with wood that is certified, but it's exactly the same process. It's just like the external eye and the talk to the community that makes that little tweak, and then we can open it to a wider market.
Well, sometimes I feel that the world is not enough for me. I joke. No, yeah, for sure. You know, Mexico right now is, well, it has been my house 31, I'm 31 years old. So, and I think we Mexicans are really family rooted, but well, I can perfectly live in New York. Maybe we can exchange houses. Sorry? Well, we must. Okay, it's a deal. A deal.
Oh, okay, well, no, it wasn't enough. That's why I live. So, but I think, like, I guess the good idea for me was like, okay, I kind of want to escaping maybe a situation when I feel like I didn't have an opportunity, and then it was really nice to like be moving around, and then I was learning so much, and then always kind of stay. I live in New York mostly the whole year, then go back to Mexico, and I'm really enjoying to spend more time in Mexico in a personal, I guess, decision. Yeah, but it's great. So I think like for me, like kind of like be this person who's like learning all over around is really, I guess, I feel I'm learning all the time. And that's that I want to keep feeling that until I die. So I think that's really important for me to, okay, keep traveling, learning, go back home, center again. And that's how I feel like my work is getting, like, I guess, in a way deeper for me, meaning, and I connected with more people. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do we have any other questions?
Oh, hi. Well, I wanted to ask first, like you two, the artists, the sculptor and the painter. I wanted to ask, I know this is a really delicate topic, but I did want to know if you have felt like regarding gentrification and this new galleries coming to Mexico City, if you have felt directly in the art world and like opportunities towards Mexican art impacted as well, or if you feel like it has been like, I don't know, enhanced. And for Carla, I wanted to ask if you were talking about coming to communities and working with communities that sometimes don't share the same language. And I was wondering if you have, like, in a really short way, like an approach system of how you discuss this type of creative sessions where you're discussing a new artifact and how you design for it when there is a language barrier. Like, is there a series of drawings that you share with each other? Is there stories being told and translated in order to get to a final design? And yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Well, for example, in the subject of the galleries, I think there are many types of galleries, that have moved to Mexico City, and in that sense, there are many approaches on this gentrification subject. There are galleries that have a more, let's say, conscious program that includes also Mexican artists, or invite the community, or this basic sense of being a new kid in the block and introduce yourself with their neighbors. But then there are other type of gallery which is like they really know what they're going to show, and they have a really straightforward program, and I think both have great things and things. The things can be in the second example is that you are this giant monster only coming and showing and portraying yourself, and if you like it, I don't care, and whatever. But the great thing is that it attracts a certain, Victor also pointed it, like a new, more younger audience that for sure it's going to be inspired or repelled by that art, but it's going to, it's going to be it has to be a reaction to every action in a way. And the first kind of galleries, I think that they are really responsible and good neighbors and a little bit more conscious, is that they include more include more artists from the ecosystem. But at the same time, I don't know if that kind of, like the thing, it's, I don't know if that can be really patronizing, or let's give a chance to this Mexican. And again, it tends to be a little bit exoticized thing in some ways. So there's no good or bad, but there's like this observation that I can see. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I feel like in art, since I was kind of young, started going to like art fairs, I quite see a lot of like Mexican art in a different way portrayed. Was not too much fixated in identity. I think maybe for me, because obviously the experience growing in Mexico City is so specific. So I think like I always see like so much like amazing artwork since I was like really like 15 or 16. So I think like when I see that and then I saw my experience going to the States, that was totally different. So how we play with identity. And since the beginning of my work and the fashion was kind of making fun of being Mexican in a way, like it's easy for us to like, okay, how we have this like sense of humor that we always talk about, I guess, in our community. So I like the idea of like how like play with my identity and own it. And I guess it's my experience. I can do whatever I want. So I just put it the way that I say it. And I think the experience of like how they are in Mexico City, I think is pretty strong. And I think a lot of galleries, they kind of see that boiling point of like a lot of people, I guess since the 70s, 60s, a lot of people migrate there. So you can see there like how it creates something new. And I feel like that in that with the art, I think was a lot of like big, I guess me, that's my experience like growing up in museums and galleries. And then you see how like that was mixed with like big names So I like that idea, how I see that growing up, and that kind of give me an opportunity to see my work mixed in other parts of the world too.
And can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was wondering if in your process of designing, when you started designing with a language barrier with the community, like you were talking about the, yeah.
Como una metodología de trabajo.
Yeah. If you like have any like visual support or methodology besides the squares that like, which I get that is for patterning and the actual making of things, but for exploring designs with the people that you start talking to. Like when you approach a community, they come with an artifact and you're trying to explore it and decide where the design is going. What other than language, than like just words, do you use?
Well, we do books. We have 2 books on that theme. The first one is called Taller Flora. The second one is El Manual de la Diseñadora Descalza. That is called the Barefoot Designer a Handbook. We do exhibitions. We do videos. We do a semestral free magazine to explain our processes. I'm an art historian, so I'm very nerdy on the processes of knowledge and learning. So yes, we do have a lot of that background that I can share with you. Everything is online on our website. If you go, there is one that is called Manifesto of Fashion and Resistance. And then you have like all the magazines and some of the books that are, it's like an open source. You can go and see them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to Karla and Carla.
Thank you.
To Jovanna. Thank you for being here. That was wonderful.